So from 15 to 29, I consider that my journey to step one and all the pain and hell and heartache that it caused. Then really deciding, hey, do I even want to be alive? I didn't care if I was living or dying because I just felt so worthless. So life is life, and you can truly get yourself in such a condition by just practicing normal good principles every day that no matter what life brings you, you can make the best out of it. And what you think is such a disability or bad luck, it's always being used for a greater good. And the quicker I get into solution thinking and say, why is this problem happening? Okay, it's just an issue. What's the solution? And I start focusing on the solution, the problem goes away.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Kate, and welcome to Season 5 of Rocket Motivation. We're starting off Season 5 with a bang. This week's guest was 15 years old when she became addicted to pain medication. After multiple arrests, all related to her addiction, in her late 20s, she was given one chance by the judge, rehab or go to prison. She spent 18 months in rehab, met her present husband in AA meetings, and has turned her life around and is co-founder and director of The Landing, a residential rehab facility that helps women recover from drug and alcohol addiction. She is a nationally certified addiction counselor, a nationally certified peer support specialist, and certified recovery support specialist. Her story is incredibly inspiring.
3, 2, 1.
Haley Beason, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Hey Rod, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here. So Haley, let's do this. Let's start out by telling us what you do today, family, job, get us up to speed to where you are right now.
Okay, so luckily, when you suffer from the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction, if you take the solution and work it correctly in your life, everything that you lost will be given back to you and even better. So today, after being sober for almost 10 years, I have my family. I have a husband. I have my daughter. My mom and dad love me. They respect me again. And I also am successful in my career, and I have a ton of support from friends to business acquaintances to all the way down the list. Every relationship you can have in life I have today, and it's all because I decided to change my life and get sober.
Okay. All right. Well, let take us back. Let's go back to when you're 15 years old. What happened, and how did you get addicted to pain meds?
I was 15, and we were headed to grab something to eat, and we were in a little Ford Ranger pickup truck driving with a girl. I think she had probably just gotten her license, and we were out and had a car accident with two 18-wheelers. We got sandwiched, went out the windshield, landed underneath them. All of us survived, thankfully, but that day, I remember being in the hospital with zero skin left on my body, a few broken bones, and I was given pain medication. And I remember in that instant thinking, this is the greatest feeling I've ever felt. And it just took away every fear I had had bottled up inside me my whole life. I don't know how to put into words what happened, but I remember telling myself, okay, now I can do life.
Okay. And you get out of the hospital, but now you've had this great feeling of being on these pain meds. So then what?
Well, I don't really notice that I'm doing it, and then I actually get in an accident again, and I have several different things that happen over the next few years where I just always had pain pills. And I wouldn't say I was instantly addicted, but I had them, and I liked them. I loved the effect produced by them, and it just made me feel as if I could show up and be a part of, I'd never felt a part of my whole life. And for some reason, when that chemical was inside of me, I felt almost as if it completed me.
Well, at some point, things turn south.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay. Things start turning south way before I can look at it, because when you have this problem, you don't necessarily want to admit that's what's happening, and you just try to hold on to it so much because you thought that that's your solution. So luckily for me, I kept getting in trouble. I mean, it took about 5 to 10 years to get really totally out of control, but all of a sudden, once it started getting out of control, it just kept getting out of control. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around, and the pain pills don't work anymore. And I'm wide awake in this hell that I've created. and I'm spending time in jail, and I'm spending time being homeless, and I'm looking around, and the pills aren't working anymore. So I'm just there.
I mean, and to put a little more detail on that, at some point, you're functioning normally on the pain pills. Then things go south. What happened to make it, to where you had to have more and then things got out of control?
We talk about how you just cross this invisible line in your addiction or your alcoholism, and almost anybody you talk to that suffers with this will just say one day they crossed this line and things just started getting out of control. And your life becomes completely unmanageable. I was in real estate from 19 till 25, doing very well for myself, and then all of a sudden I couldn't do it anymore. And all that consumed me every waking moment of every day was, how was I going to get these pills?
Right. Well, and did it morph from pain pills to other drugs, alcohol?
Yes, most definitely. It just turns into everything. For me, it did. Some people stick to one thing, but for me, it was anything.
Just anything you could get your hands on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Scary.
And you talk about being in jail. What was that all about?
I would get arrested in the beginning for little things, theft of property, public intoxication, DUI, and then all of a sudden I started getting felony charges. Once you get caught with pain pills or any kind of drug that doesn't have a prescription or street drug or anything of that nature, it turns into a felony. So then you're getting in more trouble, and it's a little harder just to get out of jail. And then you're on probation, and then they see you're in jail again, so they put a hold on you. So then you get to live the jail experience, which is very good for a girl like me, because my daddy used to always come get me out. And then when I got to sit in there, I started realizing, I can't keep living this way. My life, this isn't me. How did this happen?
Right. I know you end up going to rehab. What happens to where, the choice is jail or rehab? Tell us about that.
Well, I'd gotten in so much trouble in a fast amount of time, and then I started realizing what felony charges were. And this sounds crazy, but to the normal average girl, you don't understand how much trouble you're getting yourself into. And then all of a sudden, I showed up for court, and I was explained this whole process of the drug court system, where you can get into this program, we'll take these felonies away, but you've got to adhere to all these rules. And they wouldn't let you take your medicine and prescriptions. And I remember them saying, you can't even work in a bar. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? How can you do this? And then you start thinking, yeah, I have rights. You can't take my prescription from me. It's just a crazy mindset I was in. So the next time I just didn't show up for court, because there was no way I could take a drug test and pass it and follow all those rules. So I just started running. And eventually, when you have warrants on you and you're a drug addict and you're basically living in the streets, you get caught again. And when you get caught again and you haven't been showing up to court, you're stuck.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to let you out again.
No.
Okay. So at this point, you go in front of the judge. This is Judge Wilters, right?
Yes.
And just so the listeners know, you and I are from the same county. We both live in Baldwin County, Alabama. I've tried cases where Judge Wilters was the judge, so I know about Judge Wilters. What happened?
He gave me one more chance, thankfully. I don't know why. He was supposed to sentence me to prison, and he said, you have one more chance, and you're going to go to Anniston, Alabama, and you will stay there for 12 months, and you will report back to us, and if you do well, we won't let you go to prison. But if you don't, you're going to prison. This is your last chance.
Right. And Anniston, Alabama, that was a drug rehab facility.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Tell us about that.
So I get there, and I'm from down here. We don't know anything about the state of Alabama if you're from down here. There's Birmingham, Montgomery, and all of a sudden I'm in Calhoun County, and I'm looking around like, what have I done? But it turns out to be the perfect place for a girl like me. I'm so grateful that I was picked up from this place I was in and put into a safe environment where I had zero access to drugs and alcohol. Because a part of the disease that a lot of people don't know about is the mental obsession. And it's very hard for people to get sober that take it to the degree I took it without being in a controlled environment. Because my mind only thinks about getting one more drink or one more pill when I finally do sober up. And I had never really stopped long enough to understand that obsession. So the first few months of being in there were very difficult for me.
And why so?
Well, I had burnt my life to the ground, and now all of a sudden I don't have any chemicals inside my body to make me okay with my circumstances. And that's what I've been doing for the past 15 years. Like, okay, as bad as this gets, I don't have to think about it or feel it. I can stay numb, and now I'm no longer numb. And I'm covered in guilt and shame. I had given my daughter away for drugs. I had destroyed my mother and my father emotionally, financially, and I have all these bad things, and all I can think about is how terrible I am, and I don't have anything to give me a peace of mind. So it was very difficult, and the road and journey to taking step one is very sacred to me, and it's something I never want to forget. I don't allow myself to forget. I had to work my tail off in the beginning to just get little glimpses of peace, to be okay, and to want to be alive.
And when you say step one, what do you mean?
Well, I work a 12-step program, and the first step is to admit you're powerless over drugs and alcohol and your life's unmanageable. So from 15 to 29, I consider that my journey to step one and all the pain and hell and heartache that it caused. And then really deciding, hey, do I even want to be alive? Because my addiction took me to a place where I didn't care if I overdosed. I didn't care if I was living or dying because I just felt so worthless. So the first, I would say, 6 to 9 months of getting sober was me making the decision that, hey, you know what? I do want to try. What's the least that can happen? It could work. And learning how to get over myself and just do this and believe that there is a life free of drugs and alcohol that's worth living.
And I would guess that it took a while to get there because when you get in, you show up on day one. I mean, was there any part of your brain you're thinking, oh man, I'm gonna mail this in and I'm gonna go through my 12 months and then I'm gonna get out of here? I mean, did it start like that?
Oh, that's exactly how you feel.
Okay.
You know, I'm just gonna do my time. I'm gonna hurry up and get out of trouble. All I wanted was to get out of trouble. I had no idea how beautiful a life of sobriety was. I'd never experienced it. I didn't know how great it was gonna be. And I look back at those times and think, how did I make it through that? And today I know why, because of the purpose that I have to help other people get through it. But that didn't make sense to me for a while in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and so at some point, though, the light goes on while you're up in Anniston at the rehab. You make the decision, okay, I am going to turn my life around. What was that point? I mean, or what was it that got you there?
So every rehab, every 12-step meeting have these steps on the wall that you go in. And one day I was there and I looked up at that wall and I saw those steps and I said, you know what? If I work these better than anybody else, I'm going to have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I don't know where that thought came from. And I just said, okay, game on. I'm fixing to do this better than anybody's ever done it before.
Right. Okay. And so you get to the end of the 12 months. So you can go, right?
Yes.
But you don't.
Correct.
You stay another 6 months.
Yes. And I committed to stay longer because I just knew I wasn't ready to come home. And I didn't even feel like coming here was a smart decision at all. But I knew I needed to stay longer in a controlled, safe environment. Because you think, gosh, 12 months, the normal person thinks that's a very long time to go to treatment. But for a girl like me, who is a very bad drug addict and alcoholic, I was just coming to at 12 months. I was just finally to make good decisions. And the best decision I ever made was to continue to stay.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because if you came out and you're not ready and you got back in it, I mean, then, God, there's no telling where you'd be today.
Correct.
Well, so good. Glad you did it. So, but when you do, all right, so now you've been in for 18 months. You get out. You come back to South Alabama.
Nope, I stay up there.
Okay, well, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I knew that if I was going to stay sober, I needed to stay put where God sent me to get sober. And so I stayed. And about 2 months after getting out, I met my husband. He had been sober 3 years longer than I. And we met, and we started dating, and we started talking. And he said, hey, I think I want to open a rehab for women. And I was like, oh, goodness. He was like, I want you to run it. I was like, okay. So we both decided to pray about it for 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, I went back to him and I said, you know, I've thought a lot about it and I just don't think it's the right decision. Now, why I said that was I was scared to death. I still felt unworthy. I didn't think I was capable, and I was terrified to fail. And I thought that I would put myself out there and open this facility and it would burn to the ground and everybody would laugh and say, look at her, she's a failure. So I was just going to say, hey, no, let's not do it. And that's really the story of my life, paralyzed by fear. And he said the perfect thing to me. He said, okay, well, I still want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, I'm going to find someone else that does. And I was, oh, never mind, we're doing it. Let's do it. So in 30 days, the landing was born.
And so that's the inception of the landing. There it is.
There it is.
Okay, and before we get into the landing, I want to go back. All right, so you mentioned about your daughter. So when you get out of the rehab facility up in Anniston, when you do come back, talk about the relationship with your daughter and how that worked out and how it's working out today.
Yeah. So I knew without a shadow of a doubt I did not want to continue to hurt her. What I had done in my drug addiction and walking away from her, I never wanted to do that again. So when I made the decision not to come home, I knew that was the best decision for her and for me. She was very well taken care of by her dad at the time. And I knew I needed to take that slow, and my sobriety was the most important thing. So that's what I did, and I have a very strict sponsor who is so good. And she said, okay, if you decide to stay away, you've got to make your time spent with her. It has to be consistent. It has to be you're always going to show up when you say you're going to show up. It needs to hurt your pocketbook, and it needs to hurt your free time, and that's a huge commitment you're going to have to make. And so every other month for the next 6 years, I was down here visiting her. I was very consistent. I don't think I've ever told her I was going to do something and not done it since the day I got sober. And that's how we built our relationship. And very great decision that I made.
And good relationship today.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, good.
Yeah, she lives with me now.
Oh, well, well, good. All right, well, so let's talk about the landing. Okay, so the landing is conceived, it's up, and it started running. So tell the listeners what the landing is today.
Yes, the landing is a long-term sober living facility for women, and the average stay is 12 months, and the women stay there the entire time. It's an inpatient program, and I teach them how to be sober, what they have to do. We get involved in a 12-step program. We start going back to work. We cook our meals. We clean the house. We just do all of these simple everyday tasks over and over and over again. It gives them a safe place to come to make these decisions for themselves. I get them to have a sponsor and work the steps while they're there. They make financial amends while they're there. A lot of them are on court orders, so they're working out their legal consequences while they're there. And my whole philosophy of everything is to get each woman I deal with to be able to hook up to spirit, to her higher power, to the God of her understanding in her own way. And so we do a lot of prayer and meditation and being open-minded to all the different avenues there are to build a spiritual life, and just getting them in touch with that part of their self so that they can start making really good decisions for their life and learning how to be sober just on a day-to-day basis like a normal, average human being. And
doing what you do, I guess that helps you also?
Oh, yes. You teach best what you need to learn the most.
Yeah. Well, and that's a lot of addicts relapse. Mm-hmm. That's part of it, right?
Yes.
Since you've been out, have you ever even gotten close? Or
No. And I'm a completely abstinent girl, so I do not take any mood or mind-altering substances. Okay. Some people don't understand what recovery is, and recovery is different for every individual. But for me personally, there's nothing that I take today.
Since you are where you are with your recovery, you probably don't feel this, but I was thinking about this. Do you feel any added pressure given your role and your position to make dang sure that you don't relapse?
Oh, absolutely. I have too many people counting on me.
Yeah. Like how many women are in the facility, say, right now?
There's 25.
Okay. So you have 25 people that are counting on you. So it's just not an option.
That's correct. And then I probably have 20 to 40 graduates that still count on me. We're all still very close, and I'm just so grateful. Me and God just have this funny relationship, and I know He has a sense of humor, and that's part of the deal with me. I have to be so enmeshed in the middle of it to keep me where I need to be. And I remember in the beginning, like, dang, do I want to be an example every day? Do I want to do this? That was part of the fear. But I'm so grateful that I accepted the mission and that I do have to always be an example. It's built me to be such a cool person, when I just try to be the best I can every day for the benefit of other women trying to get sober.
Everything you've been through, what have you learned about yourself?
I'm tough. The greatest thing I've learned is life, and you can truly get yourself in such a condition by just practicing normal good principles every day that no matter what life brings you, you can make the best out of it. And what you think is such a disability or something that is so heartbreaking or tragic or bad luck or whatever the deal is, it's always being used for a greater good. And the quicker I get into solution thinking, and say, why is this problem happening? Okay, it's just an issue. What's the solution? And I start focusing on the solution, the problem goes away.
Well, what's your philosophy on life? What do you think we're supposed to get out of life?
The only thing that I believe I'm supposed to do every day is help somebody. And some days I feel like I'm the luckiest girl because I've been given this ability to help people come from the pits of hell of addiction and to rebuild their life and to be of good and do good and help other people and help other people and help other people. In 2019, we sold the facility in Anniston and moved down here, and I allowed one of my graduates to lease it from me and open her own place. So now it's like the Landing has a little sister place, and just to see everybody come to life, like in front of my eyes, that we're all capable. And I just think it's real cool how this whole alcoholism, drug addiction thing turns around for people that are willing to do the work and get sober, because you turn out 20 times, 30 times, 40 times better than the person you were before.
Yeah. And this will probably be a very easy question for you since you've dealt with it. What advice would you give to someone who is struggling with addiction?
Surrender and give it a try. Just try it and give it your best shot. And I'm a 12-step girl, but there's all different pathways to recovery. Pick a pathway that resonates with you, and for 1 year, give it all you got. And if it doesn't work out, you can go back.
So, like, part of what you did when you went up to Anniston, I mean, you hear a lot of times, like, if you're having problems, surround yourself by good people, get friends to help you out. But it sounds like if you're in a drug rehab, a lot of it must be just you, the internal, the strength and toughness you got to have. Is that?
Correct. Yes. It's all about you getting real serious and still with yourself and saying, here's my one shot. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to keep living in, I say spinning in neutral, just in and out, in and out, in and out, trying to get sober.
Yeah.
And then you finally surrender and do the work. You can't try. You got to do it.
I want to broaden the question out some because, the podcast Rocket Motivation is all about trying to, people hearing stories of those that have overcome adversity. And it's hopefully the listeners can get something from what we're saying. So what advice would you give to the listeners who are just, separate and apart from drug addiction, but who just, having a tough time, things are going bad in their life, no matter what the reason? What advice would you give them?
To step out into a new community and get some connection. It's all about each other and connecting with people that are like you and think of things like you do, and finding a way to be of service, even little task every day to get you out of the rut you're in. Small things, even walking somebody's dog, just doing something to help somebody else and get out of that. And it's like, in my experience, when you get real still with yourself and you say, okay, we got to get ourselves out of this. What can I do to get myself out of this? Whatever you are seeking is seeking you. And you're going to find that book, or you're going to listen to that podcast, or you're going to hear that motivation, or God's going to put somebody in your life to take you to the next level. But you got to do something.
You got to take the first step.
That's right. That's right.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If somebody is listening to this who's a woman who's in South Alabama and is having some addiction problems, how can they get in touch with you or the Landing to try to get in?
Yeah. So they can call us. They can look at our website, which is thelandingforwomen.com with the number 4, not the word, or our Facebook page is The Landing Coastal. And you can find me on Facebook under Haley Beason.
And I know that the Landing, it is a for-profit,
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But you also, do you take donations for people that want to help out?
Yes, at the Drug Education Council has a scholarship program set up. If anybody would like to donate to the Landing, since we aren't nonprofit, they can donate to the Drug Ed Council, and it stays in account just for the Landing.
Okay.
And that helps with the women who don't have any funds coming in. Now, even though I am for profit, I do not turn away anybody that doesn't have a way to pay. I'll bring in any girl in and we'll get you to work and you can pay me back.
Gotcha. But if somebody does want to donate, how can they do it?
Yes, contact Virginia Guy with the Drug Education Council, and that way you're donating to a nonprofit organization and it's tax deductible for you, and it sits in a reserved fund for the Landing.
Okay, great. So Haley, we hear the word enabler, and when we hear enabler, we have this negative context. But with what you do is, and I guess, would you agree with this, that you are an enabler, but an enabler for good?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
As an enabler for good, what do you do?
Well, when you're a drug addict and an alcoholic, you go all in at that. And then all of a sudden you start getting sober and you start learning, holy crap, if I can just put all of this energy into good, how wonderful my life's going to be. And that's exactly what's happened to me. Like all of a sudden I shifted my focus over to the light and all of the good things in life, and I go after that. And it gets better and better and better. And I teach the women that come to me the same thing. Just think about how good your life can be if you put all of this energy into creating good stuff, thinking good stuff. It all starts with the thoughts. One of my favorite sayings is, if you knew how powerful your thoughts were, you would never think a negative thought again. And that's the truth. And so you get this opportunity in recovery to take all of this energy and focus it to good. And then your life multiplies better and better and better and better. And every year of sobriety, your life gets better and better. Sobriety delivers everything alcohol and drugs promised, because the alcohol and drugs just took. And then when I get sober and I work it right, I get everything I was always looking for.
Well, and that answer and that's exactly why we do this show. Well, Haley, it's been great having you on the show. This is a spectacular way to start season 5. And so we're really excited about that. But before you go, and I always give the guest the parting shot. So give us something good that we hadn't already talked about, some good advice. Dig down deep on it. It can be anything you're thinking of that you want to say to the listeners. So now's the time to do it.
I would just say for anybody, everybody, we only have this one life to live. And you do not want to get to the end of your life and wish you had done something. And even in my case, when I was so scared, I'm so scared of doing anything that I'm scared I could fail, because what is it, pride and ego? And everybody's going to say you failed. But what I've realized is we don't fail at anything we do. And put yourself out there, take the chances. Figure out who you are, what you like, what you want to do, and go after it. And don't leave any relationship without giving it everything you have. Don't leave your day-to-day job that you really don't like right now without giving everything you have. Everything I do, I try to go in full force. And at the end of the day, whether it works out or it doesn't, I feel good because I gave it everything I had. And I never want to just let life pass me by anymore. I did that for so long, and I'm just so grateful that I got over myself and I did something to help myself, and I got out of those dark places. Life isn't meant to be lived in a dark place, and there's all kinds of things that gets us in dark places, and it's all about discipline for me. I'm pretty disciplined in my day-to-day life with certain practices I do every day to keep me connected and to keep me being the best version of myself I can be. And I just stick to those disciplines, and I get in touch with spirit.
Well, and this is exactly why I asked that question to end, because I always get these great answers. So, and that was a great answer. So anyway, so Haley, thanks for coming on. Great show. It was my honor having you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
What a great episode with Haley Beason. She's completely turned her life around from addiction to helping other women with their addiction. Such an inspirational story. Next week's guest is Matt Newsom. 13 years ago, Matt was diagnosed with leukemia. He's going to tell his story of how he not only beat leukemia, but how he's become a major fundraiser for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It's going to be a great episode. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to Rocket Motivation. If you would like to get my book, Get Back Up, it's available at Amazon. Just put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cade, and the book will pop up. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rocket Motivation wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please rate and review the shows and spread the word about Rocket Motivation to your friends. So until next time, remember, never give up and always get back up.